There are tons and tons of valid ways to keep bees, to install bees, to do feeding of your bees, everything in beekeeping. There's probably at least 2 ways, and there's probably a dozen ways you can do it. I am presenting one way today. Why am I presenting one way? Because the number one complaint that the Guild gets every year is that it's too confusing. Because as you've no doubt heard, if you ask 5 beekeepers how to do something, you will get 6 answers, and then those beekeepers will start fighting with each other online. That doesn't make it very easy to learn beekeeping when it's like that, right? We're going to talk about a way that has worked for me since I started beekeeping, and it will work for you. One thing I like about this way is that I won't say it's foolproof because there's a lot of really creative fools out there, but it's usually going to work even if you didn't grasp every last little thing that I said here and you didn't take tons and tons of notes. And I urge you, if you want at any point, take a picture of the screen, keep a record of any points that you want to remember. This way also works if, as it has been on about half of the pickup days in the past, chilly and rainy, which can be a problem otherwise. If you are an experienced beekeeper and you're like, well, actually, Elizabeth, I think they should do it such and such and such and such a way. Bless you. Please, form an orderly line over there to help newbies install their bees your way. That's cool. But we're doing it my way. It's a one-woman show tonight. Thank you very much. Preparations, also known as what you don't want to be doing in a panic on pickup day. Okay, so start with this now. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you read a basic beekeeping book. I really like this book, and I think there's actually a 5th edition out now. The Beekeeper's Handbook by Samamoto and Vitabile. I have no idea how to say that because I'm not French. Great book. I got this book when I started beekeeping, and I still reference it from time to time. It is a great book if you are like me and you like science and you like to read a lot. If you're like my apprentice Tyler, and reading is something that you kind of had to do in school and you're not all that much into it, Beekeeping for Dummies is an excellent reference book, but if you continue on with your bees, you'll probably outgrow it. But it's a good place to get started, particularly if you don't want to read all the text that's in this book, even though it's totally fascinating in my opinion. You want to choose your location for your bees very carefully because while not impossible, it is annoying as heck to have to move your bees to another location in your yard. You want to pick a location that is sunny, that is level, that is accessible, and has a little bit of space around it so that you can unstack your boxes into that space and stack them back up again. Do not be like so many beekeepers I know where they have put their hive right on the edge of a hill that is slanted like this. Not only are you going to hate yourself when you have to carry heavy supers up and down that hill, but I do actually know people whose hives got eroded out in bad winters and fell down practically a cliff, and things did not end well for their bees, and they were calling me in a panic, and I'm like, I'm not coming out. It's a gigantic thunderstorm right now. I'm not even going out on the road. Make sure that location is accessible. I know there's a big temptation to tuck your bees away in the darkest, most lonely corner of your property, but it usually isn't actually necessary to do that for sting safety reasons. My bees, I often have them right along paths that I go up and down every day. And I have almost no unprovoked stings in my backyard. So make sure you've got a good location. It's flat, it's level, it's accessible, it's not way in the back of beyond, and it is sunny. Warm bees are happy bees. Happy bees are more productive bees. Don't put them in the cold shade. They don't like that. Set up and fill your bee waterer before you get your bees. Why is that? Bees imprint not just on the source, but on the actual pebble that they got water from safely in the past, because getting water is dangerous. If a little wind pops up, splashes you into the water as a bee, you're probably going to die. You don't want the bees imprinting on your neighbor's hot tub, on your neighbor's pool, on your neighbor's kiddie pool, on your neighbor's leaking sprinkler, on your neighbor's dog dish. You want, as much as you possibly can control it, to have them imprint on a source of water that you are going to maintain 24/7 every day of the year. Easiest way to do this: go get one of those big saucers that you put under a plant outside. You all know what I'm talking about, right? Go and buy a bag or two of those decorative stones, or if you want to get real cute, marbles. Fill that thing up till it is completely full, maybe even mound it a little bit. Then stick it next to your sprinkler system and put one of those little drip emitters in it. That way, when the sprinkler system goes off, it will fill up that little reservoir. If you're worried about mosquitoes, you can use those mosquito granules or mosquito dunks in that water. It does not harm the bees. And can we send a microphone back for questions?
Elizabeth, do you worry about chloramine in the water?
Do I worry about chloramine in the water? No, I do not. I worry about chloramine for my fish at home and I dechlorinate it, but bees actually love chlorine and chloramine, which is one of the reasons you want to be really sure they're not imprinting on your neighbor's tasty, tasty pool water.
Thanks. My water always gets green and mossy. Do they care?
Do they care if the water is green and mossy? A lot of people go to a lot of trouble to provide beautiful, pristine, gorgeous water for their bees, and then they go and find the scuzziest water they can possibly find to drink. Do not worry about it. They actually prefer it if it's a bit funky. Good question. Other thing you're going to want to do is fully assemble and paint everything else, your hive, ASAP. Especially if you're planning on using a varnish or a paint other than like latex paint on your hive, because you want to give that time to off gas. Bees don't like things that have funny, stinky chemical smells sometimes, besides chlorine. I actually got a delivery this last week of some hive tops that I was bringing to a client. And I was pretty darn sure that I had ordered these assembled. And so I woke up screaming this morning going, wait a minute, I never checked. Yep, went ahead, opened up those boxes, and guess who was frantically assembling 2 lids at 9 o'clock in the morning today before they ran over there. So ask me how I know this. Make sure everything is assembled, everything fits together, and everything's super nice and ready. I also recommend that people buy all of their hive components now and get them ready, because you'll say, oh, I'm going to do it later. And then it gets to be June and maybe you're going on vacation and stuff is busy and you lose kind of interest. And then you need something and you don't have it and it's not ready and it's back ordered. Question?
So what if we're getting waxed boxes? Do we need to paint those?
Wax boxes. What about wax boxes? Yeah. So you can buy boxes that have been dipped in wax, and those don't need to be painted or whatever. So then you've saved yourself a step. You could also buy ones that are pre-painted. on there, but whatever you're going to do with them, do it beforehand.
If you're painting your own, do you paint the insides and the outsides?
Painting your hives. Should you paint the insides? You really shouldn't paint the insides. If you have made a mistake and painted the inside, don't panic. I have some boxes that I inherited from other people. The people painted the inside and it was okay. Bees are usually okay with it as long as you let it off gas a little bit in the sun. I would say one thing that I recommend that you maybe won't generally read is your bottom board, this part. If it's not wax dipped, paint every surface of it, bottom, top, inside, and out, all over it really, really well, because they tend to come apart here with the plywood because they're down here on the ground. Sometimes they're getting water in them, and that's the part that rots out first. So everything else, you're painting only the outside and not the parts that touch, with the exception of this bottom board. I would give that a really, really good painting. And in fact, if you have tight bond wood glue and you're painting your boxes, I would put some along the front edge here to seal it before you paint. The other thing that I would like to plead with everybody here, if you are using plastic foundation, please, 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 either order the double waxed version, spend a little more, or even better, wax it yourself. Okay? Yes, I know Man Lake says this is waxed foundation. Usually I feel like I could sneeze more wax onto that piece of foundation than they put on there. I don't know why they get so cheap with it, but they do. And if you give foundation to your bees, some bees are very easygoing. They're like, oh, okay, whatever. It's a little skimpy and they'll build their comb just fine. Most bees will then instead start doing all kinds of weird creative things where they draw the comb perpendicular to the frames or with a little gap in between there and the frames. And it is so irritating to have to go in and fix that later when you realize months later that, oh, whoops, they're messing it up. So I recommend when you buy your boxes, you buy a pound of wax with each box. You're going to use a little less on the medium supers and a little bit more on the deeps, but it's going to average out. And you melt that down carefully in a double boiler, or you can go into the thrift store and buy an old cheap crock pot and heat it up in there. And then you're going to buy a cheap brush from the dollar store. I think not a foam brush, and I don't actually like the foam rollers for this amount of foundation. And you're going to dip it in there. You're going to paint it well all over that foundation, getting well into the corner areas on it. It's a nice little quiet thing to do. Very relaxing, smells delicious. Don't set your house on fire. Use a double boiler or use the crock pot. But please, please, please double wax your plastic foundation. And he's bringing you the microphone for a question.
Can you do this with wax frames that have already been used?
Wax frames that have already been used. So you mean they've been drawn before or they haven't been drawn?
They've been in a hive and we've scraped the,
Oh, okay. So you had a hive, you had a hive before and they drew some stuff and then instead of spinning it, you scraped it down or something. Well, first of all, I'm never going to speak to you again because you broke drawn comb, and I love drawn comb. But I'll forgive you this one time. If you have scraped it down and there were a lot of cocoons on it, it'll kind of be a big mess and it'll be like little shreds, almost like paper mache on there. And then slapping more wax on it, the results are not good. If it only had honey in it, so you just like scraped off wax and honey, then you can paint them on again. But the great news is that they sell foundation separate from the frames. So if you have one that's kind of ruined in that way, you can pop that out, throw it away, and pop in a new one with fresh wax on it. Also, if you had bees, say last year, and you found that there were some frames that they didn't finish drawing, you probably want to go in and add a little wax to those undrawn areas to encourage them to properly finish it. And if they have done things like drawing it perpendicularly or away, take that off, scrape it all the way down to the foundation again, reapply wax, and tell them to do a better job this time or else.
Plastic frames have those little perforated corners that you can snap off. Do you need to do it, or even if you do you do it like on the top, on the bottom, or all four of them?
Oh, yes, the little area in the corner of the foundation that you can snap off to make communication holes on there. You know, I asked Oliver once, Oliver, you guys will probably get to know, has been keeping bees longer than I was alive. And I was like, do those go on the top or the bottom? And do I really need to snap them off? And he was like, I never did. And he didn't know whether they're supposed to be in the top or the bottom either. I think technically they're supposed to be in the bottom because that's usually where, if you don't use foundation, where the bees will put little gaps to move around. But honestly, there's probably 200 pieces of foundation in my apiary right now, and only a couple of them have those broken off, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. But extra credit if you break those off and put them in the right position. The other thing is, while you're waiting, please, please, please be patient. If the weather is poor, then our suppliers have difficulty getting their queens mated and dates get pushed out. Usually, if there's any change or confirmation of the pickup dates, there'll be an email that goes out about a week before. When we know, you will know, okay? But none of us can control the weather or what happens with the bees. So, further preparations. I highly recommend that you buy and prepare all your equipment at once. So your entire hive with all the supers and so forth that you plan to use. I tend to recommend that people have somewhere between maybe 4 or 5 supers, depending on whether you're doing 8 or 10 frame per hive. Like I said, get them all in, get them all assembled, have a happy afternoon slapping wax on those, and just get it done, because you're going to thank yourself and me later when, oh my God, I need to put another super on. I had no idea they were going to expand this quickly in June. Enough said. I like to use ant moats on itty bitty baby hives, especially ones being started with packages. You can buy them at the feed store or on eBay. And I recommend that instead of pouring vegetable oil into them, which is what everything recommends, I don't like that because it tends to get stuff in it when it gets dry in the summertime. The wind blows, little bits of leaves and grass and whatever fall in, dead bees fall in, and it starts smelling absolutely terrible, and it stops working. I recommend as you go out and you buy some axle grease. My mentor jokes that the kind in the red tin works the best. Any kind will work. And instead of putting it in the little well, there's sort of a like a hat brim that is on the ant moat that you put it under that brim. That keeps it clean and effective. Usually you put that on once, you don't need to refresh it for years. So I just put on a nitrile glove, scoop up the axle grease, put it on there, put up the ant moats. Ants aren't a big problem for established hives. And Oliver will tell you that ants never bother his hives and whatever, because he has great big beefy hives that he's had for years and he's not needing to feed and so forth. But they will attack weak hives. And I can tell you from my own experience, it's really annoying when you're trying to work on a hive and the ants are crawling all over you and biting you as well. And you know the bees are going to get annoyed as well. You will also need your bottom board of your hive, this part here. You will need one of your deep boxes on your install day, hopefully with your double waxed frames. And I know this is a radical idea, but if it's a 10 frame box, it should always have 10 frames in it. If it's an 8 frame box, you should always have 8 frames in it. Later on, you'll hear about fancy beekeepers doing things in supers with less frames than the titular amount. Just pretend you didn't hear that. It doesn't apply to you these first couple years, and it absolutely never applies to your brood boxes. There's going to be one exception we'll get to in a second. I recommend, question in the back.
What about a syrup feeder? Can you put one in?
Can you
Like, will
repeat the
that help?
question, please?
Will a syrup feeder help them get like
I'm
extra
sorry,
food?
can someone? Yeah, we're going to talk about that next. I recommend that you get a feeder, and I recommend that it be a frame feeder. Man Lake makes a great one called a Pro Feeder, and it's got these little mesh ladders in it. I don't recommend Boardman feeders, those little ones that stick in the front. Couple of reasons. One, they only hold about a cup worth of syrup, and a strong hive can drink a gallon in a few days. So there's no way you're going to keep up with keeping that filled. Quart?
They hold a quart
Okay.
bottle.
Not enough. So the other thing is that Boardman feeders can end up tempting outside bees into your hive because it's right here by the entrance and it's relatively undefended. That can set off robbing of your hive by bigger, beefier hives in the area. Frame feeders are great. There's some types of top feeders that are also good, but they're a little bit more error prone. They're hard to seal off from outside bees. And honestly, they're both expensive and they take up a ton of room in your shed for the subsequent years in which you might never use it again. So buy a frame feeder, it stays on a shelf, nice and easy, compact for the rest of your life. You will also need your inner cover and your outer, or sometimes called telescoping cover. Why do beehives have 2 different covers? Because eventually the bees will kind of glue everything together with wax and propolis, and you can't really pry under here. So you always want to make sure you've got your inner cover in place so that they don't glue down your outer cover. You will also need your bee PPE, so your jacket or your suit, your gloves. Hopefully there's some sort of veil involved. I recommend that if you are going to go with just a jacket, that you pair it with fairly baggy pants, like baggy jeans, nothing skin tight, nothing like yoga pants, which are usually black and very thin and stuck onto you. And that's just asking to be stung. I also recommend that you pair it with boots that you can tuck said pants into. I personally am allergic to bee stings, so I tell everyone I suit up because I swell up. I also just think it's more fun to be keeping your bees when you're not freaking out, worried that you're going to be stung. You'll want your hive tool, whatever type you have bought. You'll want your smoker. You'll want some sort of fuel for your smoker. Keep that fuel sealed up in something airtight, preferably inside your house. If you have it just kind of loose or in a Ziploc bag that you can never really get sealed in your shed, the damp gets into it and then it becomes really annoying to get it to light. Oh, and your bee jacket or your bee suit should be hung up inside your house somewhere after you use it. Know a lot of people who take off their bee suit and it's kind of sweaty or whatever, and they put it away in their shed, and then their $200 bee suit gets mildewy and smelly and gross, or mice nest in it. Put it in your house somewhere, hang it up somewhere where it's going to be nice and climate controlled. You want a torch of some kind. I would say the minimum that you probably want to work with is one of those barbecue lighters with the long nozzle on there. Those are okay. I think the absolute easiest and best thing to use is like a creme brulee torch. Hit them with that. It's much easier to get that fuel really burning when you're not messing around with little matches. One or two big rubber bands if you're installing a package. If you're installing a package, you're going to want some sort of a sharp knife or a thin nail or a little tiny sharp screwdriver like the one that I show here. And also, if you're doing packages, you're going to want to have your marshmallows. I had to stop my partner from putting these in hot chocolate the other day. I was like, no, those are for queens. He says, don't we get it? I'm like, no, they're just for queens. I'm so mean. Okay, nucs versus packages. Which one did you order? This is a very important question because although this process is somewhat similar for both, there's some overlap, and the pickup process is somewhat similar, the pickup days are different days. As far as I'm concerned, they're probably always going to be different days. What is a package? A package is a little screened box. It usually has a can of syrup in it and between 2 and 3 pounds of bees. The queen is in there inside little queenie cage. And pickup for packages is scheduled for Saturday, April 19th, 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Okay? Nucs consist, and we're going to have pictures of all this in a minute. Nucs consist of an outer box, usually of plastic, 5 drawn deep frames. So if you are using something other than a Langstroth deep as your brood box, you need to be prepared for this with something that's going to make that possible for you. Those frames are going to have brood, that's the baby bees, pollen, and honey. There's going to be lots of bees running around inside that box, and the queen is going to be running around loose inside there as well. We don't know yet what day is going to be nuke day. So pickup is still ETA. Traditionally, nuke day happens about a month after package day. And if you know things about how packages and nukes are made up, it kind of makes some sense. But it will also be from 11 to 2, but we don't know the day yet. Pickup is at our friends at Peninsula Feed Store. Here's the address right here. It's very easy. It's just down the street from Stack's. Now we're going to talk about stuff that applies to both packages and nukes. Be aware that any updates you are going to get are going to come to the email address that the Guild has on file for you, which is not necessarily the same as the one that you might get the Google group messages on or anything like that. So if you used the email for your old work, that's where that email is going to go. If something happens and we have to change things at the last minute, we are going to be using that email and maybe that phone number to get in contact with you. For instance, does everyone remember a little something that happened in the spring of 2020? Things got a little complicated, right? Including package and Nook pickup. We had to kind of tweak how we were doing that. And so messages go out to those things. If, heaven forfend, something bad should happen and we need to get in contact with you, we need to have your correct contact information. So please, 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 tonight, go log into your Guild account and make sure that the number and email we have for you are current and they are accounts and phone numbers that you will actually check and answer. Please put the Guild's email address and mine, which will be up shortly, in your email contacts and make sure that all your Guild emails are not going to your spam folder, which sometimes they do. Please, please, please pick up the phone on pickup day if somebody calls you. Note, you might be called by someone other than me because, again, I'm hard of hearing. Put my contact info in your phone right now, please, please, please. That is it, in case you need it. Something terrible happens on your way to pick up and you want to let me know. Pickup days, do not be in a daze on pickup days. Please, 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 do not be early or late or on the wrong day. We're laughing every year somebody shows up on package day expecting to get their nuke. That one is not as sad as the people who show up on nuke day expecting to get their package, which is long gone for a month. Do not show up at 9:30 or 10:30. Also, thou shalt not show up at 2:15. 3 o'clock is right out, okay? That is the window. Please, please, please also do not call or otherwise bother the feed store employees about all this. They don't really know anything about bees, and they don't know anything about pickup besides that they are hosting it. Super nice people, but you bother them, I'm going to tell them to give you a rooster chick to take home. Feed store does have some limited bee supplies, and sometimes you might even be able to persuade them to order in something for you. If you're going to order through them, I recommend you go through the Man Lake catalog because they use the same ordering system and record the little part number there and give them that. Because otherwise, they don't know a deep from a medium, a queen from a drone, anything. They don't know what you're talking about. They only do chicks. You may wish to bring a thin, old sheet, a bed sheet with you. And all of those words were important. Do not bring a pillowcase, it is too small. Do not bring a thick, fluffy one made of flannel, it doesn't breathe enough. Don't bring a towel. I've had people show up with little tea towels. It's not going to do anything, it's too small. You might want to bring your gloves in case there's a bee on the outside. Just makes it a little easier to pick them up. A volunteer is going to take your name, check you off the list, and then somebody's going to give you your bees. On package day, I'm going to very briefly give a little pantomime thing that shows you how to take the cork out of your queen cage and put a marshmallow in. We're going to do that today as well, but there's going to be a little refresher there. They'll do it about every 15 minutes if anyone's interested on package day. Volunteers are lovely, lovely people, but please, please, please do your own homework because they don't have all day to tell you about everything because they're busy giving everyone their bees. So respect their time, please. Like I said, bring that maybe that bed sheet to wrap them up. And if you get stray bees in your car, do not panic. Just crack the windows. The bees go up towards the light. They run right up the window and out. It's like they've been trained. You'll never see that bee again, but oh well, it was only like 3 cents. Go straight home. Do not go and get a coffee and hang out with your bees roasting in the car. By the way, if you ordered extra queens, loose queens, not the ones that are in packages in nucs, probably no one here did, I recommend that you wear a shirt that has a little pocket in it, so you can put your queen in there so that she's next to your heart and she knows that she's loved. No, so that she stays nice and warm for the trip home. Those of us of the female persuasion already have somewhere that we can tuck that bee in without a pocket. Hey, there's an advantage to being a girl. Every year, there's a few people who call me and they're just about in tears. Oh my God, Elizabeth, I can't make it to the pickup. You guys are so mean. Don't panic, okay? You're gonna try the following. Number one, you're gonna call your bee buddy. What's a bee buddy? What's a bee buddy? Well, I'll tell you what the bee buddy is. See this guy here? This is Tim. He's my bee buddy. He lives next town over from me. We do bee stuff together. When I go on vacation, he's on call in case anything happens with my bees. When he goes on vacation, I'm on call for his bees. We also look after each other's chickens. We are tight as bee buddies. It's this whole thing. It's called having friends. It's great. So I had you all kind of sort yourselves out roughly geographically. Please turn to somebody in your general area who is not the person that you live with and say, hello, my name is Elizabeth. I live in Menlo Park. Won't you be my bee buddy, please? Highly recommend you take a moment and consider doing that. I won't make you kiss. It's not like in church. Okay, so exchange numbers with another beginner at this meeting and form a mutual bee assistance pact. It is useful for pickup days. It's useful for other things. You don't have to be fast friends. I loved him, but it's cool. You don't have to be that tight with him. Just someone who's going to help you if you have an emergency. If you're really unlikable and you can't manage to make a friend tonight, it's okay. We have a whole Google group full of unlikable people. Maybe one of those will be your bee buddy. Everybody here on the Google group? If you are not on the Google group and you would like to be in the Google group and you missed the Google group intro email when you first signed up for the guild, ping me with an email with the email that you want added to the Google group, and I will add you to the Google group. If you have tried all of the above and you have a true bee emergency, you absolutely cannot make it because your partner is sick with COVID. You found out you had the measles. Please don't come if you have the measles. I do not want to get the measles. Your car exploded. I don't know. Something happened. Email me as soon as you know at this. We'll talk about that more in a few slides. If you can't come, absolute last minute, text me. Texting's always better because I'm hard of hearing. It is, as Tori said, your responsibility to promptly pick up and properly install your bees. We're trying to make it as easy as you can, trying to provide information like this, but ultimately it's up to you to make it happen. Now, let's say you've arranged that your bee buddy is going to pick up your bees. That's great. You need to let me know, though. I need to know their name and I need to know their phone number. And I don't want to have to send 3 emails to get that 2 pieces of information, please. I am a very, very, very busy woman. I only release bees to the person on the list I got from the guild. Otherwise, some random person could be coming by saying, hi, I'm Carol. I ordered 5 packages. Then Carol shows up and where are her packages? No, send me the information. And then make sure that they know all this lovely stuff that we talked about. Make sure they know the only allowed pickup time and place. Make sure that they know that your bees are forfeit if nobody shows up for them, that I am leaving at 2:01. I'm just like throwing the stuff in the truck and I'm like running out there and I don't care if you're running after me. That they should answer their phone when a maniac calls them on pickup day. Make sure they're aware. Again, it's your responsibility to arrange with this person and make sure they know everything. Don't be that person who sent somebody who showed up at 4 o'clock all annoyed at me. Let's say you really, really couldn't get somebody to pick up and install your bees for you. As a courtesy, by prior arrangement only, for packages, you have two options. One is me, the other one is my apprentice, Tyler. Tyler will install your bees in your home apiary to your fully prepared and ready and out there hive for $50. Or I will take the bees back to my home apiary in Menlo Park over by Facebook, install them, and then you will pick them up the next weekend. We need to leave them in place a little while because they need to get kind of settled. If we move them around too much right after we've installed them, they're probably going to fly away. If I put them on my equipment, that's $75 because you're going to get the frames when you come pick them up. On your equipment that you dropped off like this in advance, $50. For nucs, similar offer. Tyler can go and install in your home apiary into your completely ready hive for $50. Or I take your nucs back to my apiary and I pull out a frame of brood and I give that to one of my hives and I put in an undrawn frame. That taps the brakes on them just casting the tiniest swarm ever before you come and pick them up. You come and pick up the nuc, usually the following weekend, because I don't want to have to commit to being around every day. $50. All right, moving on into package land. Everybody who ordered a package, pay very close attention. And this will also apply to packages you might have ordered from Man Lake. Someone said they ordered from Man Lake package. Awesome. So again, you're gonna have volunteers. Here we are again. These are the packages. They come all nailed together like this. We are here, we are vacuuming the loose bees off of there. We're out here at the feed store, back by the hay. Package consists of this box with some sort of can of syrup. There'll be a little metal tab here that is suspending the queen cage. Usually it is this type, which is called a California cage. It could be this type, a 3-hole cage. It could be a plastic type. It's almost always been this type. Sometimes there's a little wooden piece over the can here to keep it from sliding around and help control bee leaks there. There's mesh on either side. The queen cage itself comes with your queen in it, hopefully. Little cork, both ends often. And they're usually a bit more flush than is shown in there. Installing a package. It's a little nerve-wracking, I understand, especially if this is your first instance with bees, but this was my first experience with bees and I am still alive. You can do it. When you have a package, you need to make installing that ASAP a strong priority. If you need to wait a few hours because your partner is getting off of work and wants to install with you or whatever, that's okay, but put them in the shade, and if it's raining, put them like in your garage or something so they're not getting drowned. The earlier you install your package, the more live bees are in that package and the more time you have to fix any issues that might arise. There's lots of ways to install a package. But by the end of the installation, that queen cage should be hanging in the hive in a way that the screen is accessible to the bees. There should be the cork removed and replaced with a marshmallow. The bees should be moved in or moving into the hive, and there should be a good cluster of bees around the queen from the very start. This is especially important if it is a chilly, windy, unpleasant day out. I once installed somebody's bees on package day, and it was literally a thunder and lightning downpour, and I was completely soaked to the skin. You got to keep the queen nice and warm and as dry as possible. You want to make sure that you have all your frames in the hive when you're done. If you're not using a feeder, that means 10 frames in a 10 frame, 8 frames in an 8 frame. If you're using a frame feeder, depending on the size, they replace 1 or 2 frames in there. So take those out and then count the frame feeder as that. It's never exactly the same width as some frames, but you know, guesstimate it, you'll be okay. You want all the shoulders of those frames touching each other. Did you know frames had shoulders? They have shoulders and they have ears. Shocking. These are the ears of the frame. These little bits that stick out like our ears stick out from the head. And these are the shoulders, kind of like your shoulders stick out from the side of your body here. So you want your frames more or less centered, and you want all of those shoulders touching. There's lots of ways to install, but you kind of want to make sure that whatever way you might use, if you like, I want to do it differently, I want to do it the way I saw on YouTube, that's cool. Make sure all of these conditions are met when you are done. My favorite method is I put on my suit. Package bees, not very likely to sting you, but you know, there might be a lot around crawling on you, and then you put down your arm and ow, not a good start to your beekeeping career. You open up your lid. You probably don't even need to pry it because you probably have brand new stuff. And then you go and pry off if there is that little piece of wood over the can of syrup. You just get your hive tool underneath it and pop it off. Then you use your hive tool to lift up that can of syrup. You pull it up and remove it. And what I recommend is that you pull it straight up and then you kind of slide it across because there's going to be a whole chain of bees hanging off of it. Don't worry if a few bees fly out into the world, they'll find their way in the hive eventually. So you move that across. Then you're going to grab that little tab. You're going to remove the queen. There's also going to be bees hanging off of her. You can just sort of gently shake, scrape them back in. Then you can grab that piece of wood and put it back on top of the package so that generally the bees are contained. You should take a good look at your queen. Hopefully you're not going to have her out too long, especially if it's cold, but you know, take a moment, take a look at her, and maybe even get your partner or friend to take a photograph of her from her backside up, because that's going to make it a lot easier for you to recognize her later, because different queens look different. They don't always look sunny and yellow like they do in your book. You're going to remove the cork. We'll do the demo on that in a minute using your knife. And you're going to put in that marshmallow. And someone has a question. Just one moment, let me get the microphone to
second.
you.
Wouldn't that be a good time to mark the queen?
Say again?
Wouldn't that be a good time to mark the queen?
To mark the queen. If it was me and I was installing a package, I would mark the queen. If I was a baby beginner, I would not mark the queen at that stage. It's just too much of a chance of you losing her, hurting her, what have you. Bob?
All of our queens are coming marked.
Yes, awesome. Look at that. You don't even need to do anything.
Are the queens mated that are in packages?
Say again, Sydney?
Are the queens mated that are in a package?
Yes. Should be. Okay. And another question.
Why marshmallow?
Marshmallow, good question. So the idea of the marshmallow is that the bees will slowly eat the marshmallow. And that means that the queen will be delayed in her release into there. These queens are not related to the bees in the packages. The bees in the packages are shaken out of many, many hundreds of hives, mixed all together basically, and shoved in a box. So they need a while to get used to the scent of this queen and accept her as their new queen. If you just pop her in there, there's a chance that they will just ball her and kill her. But weirdly enough, I did have one year, I was trying to put the little, I think we were using gummy bears that year, and I could not get the gummy bear to stick in, and I was just like changing my grip on it, and it fell out, and the queen ran out and yeeted herself into the hive, and I was like, well, I guess I'm closing this up. Closed it up, and it was fine. But the marshmallow is your extra pants, suspenders, belt coverage. Tori.
Yes, further to that point, we use marshmallows because marshmallows are squishy and you can get them in that little tube. The year that we used gummy bears, Elizabeth and I were ripping the arms and legs off the little suckers to get them in the hole. And that was not fun for anybody.
And we're vegetarians, so we didn't like it. Chewing the little legs off of those little bears. Bob.
I would recommend that you hold the cage in a way that the queen runs up and away from the open hole. Otherwise, she could fly away if she gets out of the hole.
Yes. So what I like to recommend people do is that you hold your cage in your dominant hand like this. So, and you practice, no joke, putting your thumb over the cork end while it's still in there. Then you go and you take your knife or whatever, and you start loosening that cork a little bit. And then you wait until she's turned around and she's starting to run the other way. And then you use all of those skills that you used playing Super Mario Brothers to time it. So that you pop that cork out right when she turns around and starts running this direction. And then you pop your thumb on there. And then you can take a moment and go, and calm yourself down again and get your marshmallow ready, which you should have all these things laid out ready to go. And then you watch again and you go stomp and you stuff it in really quick. And if you drop the marshmallow, you just put your thumb back on there. Because as long as you have your thumb there, she's not going anywhere, right? Don't be the one whose queen flies away.
But is she gonna sting you?
No, and you get your gloves on anyhow. Fun fact, queen venom is apparently a different composition than worker venom, and it does not have as many things that are tuned to hurt the heck out of mammals as worker venom. So I don't recommend it, but apparently if you get stung by a queen, it doesn't hurt as much as if you're stung by a worker.
How much exact marshmallow do you put in? Are you using a large one or a small one, or is it a half inch? I mean,
I'm going to provide marshmallows. I bought a whole bag of them. They weren't even the vegetarian kind. I use the mini marshmallows, but if you lose your mini marshmallows and all you have is the big marshmallows, just rip a piece off about the size of a mini marshmallow and make it the right shape and shove it on in there. Easy peasy. All right, so you're going to securely hang your queen in the center of top of your hive with the screen accessible, which means it's either going to be facing down or it's going to be facing up, because if it's facing to the side, your frames are going to cover it, and then the bees cannot feed the queen while they're working on freeing her, and you don't want that. She will die. So you're going to put her on there. You can do it by rubber banding her if you like. Supposedly you can use this little tab to hang her. I think that's really unreliable. I happen to have a drawn frame here, but the same basic principle works. You can use a big rubber band like this, or you can take a bunch of rubber bands and loop them together. You can probably go find some mask elastic from the pandemic and knot them together. That works too. Just like that. Easy peasy. Once you've got her in here and you've kind of centered everything up as much as you can, you won't be able to squish this frame all the way up to the other one. There'll be a little gap. Doesn't matter. Then you're going to take your bees out of your package and you're going to pour them right on top of that queen cage. And the way the packages are designed, it's like a little trick where you've got to it's like one of those games where you've got to get the ball to go into the hole or whatever, because you're whacking it and shaking it and whacking it and shaking it. So, does everyone know how to double click on a mouse? You have to double whack. The first whack, the bees go, ooh, but they stay hanging on. You go whack, whack, the first whack kind of knocks them off balance, and then the other one knocks them off their feet, and then they fall exactly like dried beans out. Keep doing that until you have at least a good sized clump of bees around there. Fill your feeder. I recommend a funnel. You'll kill a lot less bees that way. And then you're going to close up the hive. If you need to, you can use your blow smoke across the top bars to get the bees to go down. Then you'll still have some bees in that package because it's like that puzzle and you're not going to get them all out. So what I do is I put the open package with the top just barely touching the bottom board. So maybe I put it up on some bricks or whatever right there. And the bees will eventually realize, oh, we're going in here now, and they'll march on in. Then congratulate yourself. Go have a cup of tea or a cup of iced tea, depending on whether it's hot or cold that day. And then discard that package box. We are not bringing those back to the feed store. If you want to recycle queen cages, if you want to give me those at some point, that's fine, but don't bring them to the feed store. They do not want our garbage.
So there's a question from the chat that says, are the package bees treated for Varroa?
Are the package bees treated for Varroa? I don't think they've been pre-treated, no. So here you see a setup where I was using both a combination of drawn comb and extremely well waxed foundation here. The black foundation makes it easy to see that you have applied enough wax. Here's one of those frame feeders here. You can see it's well used. I put the frame feeder in one of the outside positions, so like the number 1 or the number 10 position. Why? Because then when you go to fill it, you only have to kind of slide the inner cover over a little bit. You don't have to disturb the rest of the colony. Here you can see queen cage rubber banded to a frame. Here's a video of me installing a small hive. I've actually put it into a nuke box, and I used, that year we had queen candy instead of marshmallows. It's the same thing. Let's see if we can get this to play. Look at all that wonderful wax on there. Here we go. This one had tape just to make it a little extra crazy. And I'm doing this up on top of the hive just because I want it in frame. See how the bees are clinging? I just gently brush them off into there and set that aside. Then go back here, grab that little tab. If you drop her in, don't panic. Just reach in slowly and the bees will sort of be all warm around you. And just gently lift her out. Here I am removing the bees, and there's the queen. See, there's a bee trying to feed her through the mesh. If you need to
Comment?
pause, the only valid places to put your queen are in your pocket or in the hive.
Just a point, if your queen is dead, call me.
We're getting to that. So I just recovered it with the can. You can use anything, slip of wood, piece of cardboard. There's the queen candy looking like a licorice all sort. There's the cork. I'm watching how she goes. You can tell this is the nerve-wracking part. Okay, loosened, and I stuck my thumb right over the edge. I had to kind of hold it differently so you guys could see it, but there you go. So now I can still my heart rate a little bit. See, she's a really dark queen. She's not orange like in a lot of the photos. And I got the queen candy, and I watch her. Watch for when she's gonna turn around. And then I just, whoop, shove the queen candy right in there. Slid her right under the rubber bands. I actually bent that little tab up around them just for extra security. You really don't want that queen cage to fall. Then put her in the center of the hive. You can see there's quite a few flying around. No big deal. And then the violence begins.
Why do you put the queen cage at the top, not in the center? Yeah, why do you put the queen at the top?
The bees tend to go up. So if you put it like dead center, maybe they're she's kind of towards the bottom part of that cluster. I figure if I go slightly above center or towards the top, then they're really going to cluster around her. So there you go. You see me whacking the heck out of it like I'm trying to burp a reluctant baby. And there's a lot of chaos. This is why I suit up. There you go. I got most of them in there. Then I would just put it so it's touching the bottom board. And closed all up.
How many frames does 2 to 3 pounds of bees cover?
Say again, please.
How many frames does 2 to 3 pounds of bees cover?
Oh, Cindy, I don't know. Probably about 5, 4, 5, I'm gonna guess. If your queen is dead on arrival, you need to tell us immediately. You need to have sent us a short video of the queen being dead in the cage the day of pickup. Okay? Since picking up a new queen from Bob and installing her is going to take you some time because you're going to have to arrange to meet with Bob and you have to drive to Bob's and you're going to get the queen and come back. I really recommend that you don't wait until the last minute before dusk to check that your queen is alive. Okay? Again, do not contact the feed store if your queen is dead. Do not install your hive, your package. Just close it back up with the little feeder with the dead queen hanging in there after you got your necropsy video. Text me that video and your name at my number, and I will give you Bob's number to get that replacement.
When you start with like your first hive and you're putting them in for the first time, you just start with 1 box, right?
I'm sorry, can someone repeat that question for me?
Sorry, you only start with 1 box, right? When you first put them in?
One deep.
One deep, and when they grow out and are 80% full, then you add a second box.
Yes, so start out with just the 1 brood box. Package install, there's a follow-up step. When to do this step is very controversial. It's definitely one of those ask 5 beekeepers, get 7 answers kind of things. I personally recommend checking the next day, about 24 hours after you've installed. Why do I recommend that? 1, you, unlike me, probably have a day job that you are expected to be at most of the rest of the daylight hours of the week. If you wait until next Saturday, then that little space that you had to leave because the cage was in the way will probably get crazy comb in it. If your queen cage, God help you, fell down into the bottom, there's a slight chance that maybe you can save the situation the next day if it wasn't too cold and the bees actually followed her and clustered around her. And usually she is released by the next day anyhow. They work pretty hard getting through that marshmallow to her. So what you're just going to do is you're going to put your suit on again. You're going to smoke the hive just very lightly. You don't need to go crazy. And you're going to go in, pull out that queen cage and the rubber band and make sure she's not in it. If she still is in it, put her back in. Same way, come back another day. Then you're going to push all those frames absolutely together and center them. Check if they need a feeder top up. Probably they don't by then. And close up the hive. And then it's Miller time again. On to nucs. More fun with volunteers. Parts of a nuke. You have your outer plastic box. Sometimes they've come in this type of plastic box, which is made of like election sign material. Recently, they've come in these plastic boxes instead. This type also has these little separate pieces of plastic that are the frame rests, and the doors are actually separate as well. They contain 5 frames that should be pretty much fully drawn. There should be brood on about 4 of those frames, honey and nectar, pollen on another frame at least. There should be bees all over it, and there is a queen in there running around somewhere. The doors kind of slide up on these and pop out, and you'll probably be aggressively taped shut because they leak bees like crazy, and we try not to have too many bees wandering around the feed store. The people buying chicks do not like it. This type has a little door that is sort of an angle and it pops out or pushes in. So if you have this type, you have to use like a little screwdriver or whatever to pop that out, I find. Installing a nuke is ridiculously easy. You want to install them as soon as possible because usually when we get these, they are beautiful and they are absolutely stuffed with bees. And they usually have sheets and sheets of capped brood that is waiting to emerge. And if you just leave them in there, they will cast the world's tiniest swarm and you will be so annoyed. If you need to wait a few hours or even a day or two, not recommended, put the nook, I say, on top of the hive, facing the same direction as the hive, and open the front door and let them fly. That way they are imprinted on this area, and when you change them to being in the hive, very easy. Don't put them somewhere else because then they'll be looking for the hive over there. Do not ever, 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 ever leave the nuke in the sun, ever. When occasionally we get a really hot day, we're like rigging all kinds of shade and spritzing water on them the whole time, trying to keep them alive. Do not leave them closed up in the sun. Do not leave them closed up in any location more than a couple of hours. Like I said, if you really have to wait, put them on top of a hive, pop them open. So what are you going to do? You're going to open up your hive. You're going to pull 5 frames out of the middle of the hive. And you're going to put those back in the shed or something because you're not going to use them right now. Open your nuke box and use your hive tool to pry and lift out those frames one by one, starting on the outside. You're going to pry to the side, lift it out, and place them in about the same order in the hive. If you have those frame rests, make sure you save them. The box isn't very useful without them. And then you can use the same kind of method of banging and dumping the rest of the clinging bees into the hive. This is super fast. It should take you like more time to get suited up and get your smoker running than to do this. Make sure your frames and the feeder are all touching, everything's centered in your hive. Fill that feeder with a funnel, close it up, go have a nice cup of tea. And then you can either keep that box for your own use later, or you can drop it off at Elizabeth's house, and I'm very happy to recycle it and use it myself. Make sure you include the frame rests and the doors. New colony care. So what you're going to do with your bees now that you've got them. Your first month, your goal is to get as much of this brood box, and maybe another one, drawn as you can. And the way you're going to do that, I recommend, is you're going to feed, feed, feed. You're going to feed until one of 3 conditions is met. You're going to feed until they have drawn out pretty much all of your brood box frames, or until they stop taking the feed, or until you look in and you're like, they're really kind of packing a lot of this away. They're not using it to build, they're just storing it. Whichever comes first. I recommend that you use either 2-to-1 sugar water syrup that you made yourself, and we can talk about how to make that, or you can buy ProSweet. The feed store usually has some, or you can order it online. When your first box is about 70% drawn, so they've drawn pretty much everything because you've got your feeder in there probably, that's when it's time to add the next box. You may, over time, have to move the frames from the outside positions, 1 and 2, 9 and 10, similar frame, towards the middle, because many bees would rather die than draw these outer frames correctly. I call it beginneritis. Somebody comes along and they say they've been keeping bees for 3 years, but they want me to come solve a problem, and I pop open their hive and those frames are not drawn. Stop feeding, absolutely stop feeding, and super once your second brood box is about 70% drawn. You want to check a few days to a week after adding your super to make sure that they're using it, especially if you're using a queen excluder, because some bees would rather die than go through the queen excluder. Inspections. This is also going to be very controversial. You can start inspection your first week.
Elizabeth, just a time check.
Almost time? Sorry.
How much longer do we have, Tori?
Inspect no more than once a week, absolute max. Okay? Except for those quick feeder top-ups. Only pull out the frames of the box when the weather is warm, 60 degrees or more. And it is normal and expected that packages will sort of dwindle for the first 3 to 4 weeks due to natural attrition, because it takes 3 weeks for those first new workers to emerge and replace them. Don't rearrange those frames for the first 4 to 6 weeks after installing a package. They've got to be expanding their population to tolerate it. Your goals are to get those brood boxes drawn, get supers on, and learn firsthand about bees and colony structure. It's absolutely normal for that comb to darken over time. Do not freak out. The bees love it. Always smoke first. Give the smoke time to work. Always work from the outside in. Pull an outside frame out. It reduces the chances of you killing your queen. Pry, using at the shoulders of the frames, not the middle. You're less likely to break frames that way. And have a plan. What are you looking for when you're going in your hive? Good plans include checking how much comb is drawn and that it's being drawn correctly, learning to identify the different types and stages of brood, learning to identify honey and pollen stores, and observing that overall colony structure and growth pattern. I don't recommend spending a lot of time looking for your queen. Learn to find eggs instead. Use a cheap magnifier and an expensive flashlight to see eggs, or use your phone camera to zoom in. If you have eggs, you had a queen 4 days ago, that's good enough for me. When you're putting it back together, always make sure those frames are pushed together and centered every single time. Stuff to look for. Eggs looking like tiny little miniature grains of rice here. This is where black foundation is a huge advantage. Pollen, here, lots of different colors. Capped brood over here. Capped honey, more brood. This is drone brood. Here's what happens when you don't wax your foundation enough. I provide a lot of beekeeping services. As Cindy will tell you, my tag phrase is, ask me how I know this. I've made a lot of mistakes in beekeeping, so you don't have to. I have a paid Zoom class for beginners and intermediate beekeepers. You're going to learn how to never need to buy bees and listen to my boring talk again. Yay! I usually have freebies and giveaway. I try to be very thorough, try to be very friendly and a little funny. And like I say, you're getting it from one beekeeper instead of 12 beekeepers who are busy fighting with each other. I include classes on inspections, pest, sting safety, really big one, harvesting honey. We made lots of bee products. We had a lot of fun. It helps you avoid beginneritis. It helps you avoid crashing out of beekeeping in your second or third year, as many people do. We have some fun, we have some laughs, and we make good friends. And it helps you get the most out of your beekeeping experience. I also do paid private classes in your apiary. I do a certain amount of bee sitting and problem solving, also for fee. I also, for people who don't want to actually go to all the trouble of learning beekeeping and hearing me guess on, I have this Sweetness and Light hive hosting program for non-beekeepers. If you have friends who'd like to have bees, don't want to go through this nonsense, this is the program for them. I also have very limited queens and bees for my lesson clients. Please text me to sign up or learn more. And thank you so much for listening to my class. Any final questions? Anything from online?
No, there were some people who were asking for that video.
Okay,
And I found it and gave them the link to that, so.
fabulous. And there's a question over there.
1 second, I'm coming.
Where can we find the slide deck?
Where do you find the slide deck? I don't give out my slide decks, but this is recorded and it will be available from the Guild's website.
We have a YouTube channel. You'll be able to find it there. Thanks, Elizabeth.
You put